I wonder if I'm correct in thinking that you might experience that chronic hypervigilance, just being constantly worrying, stressing, thinking something bad is going to happen, especially around a business, especially around money. And I wonder what that experience is like for you, because working with different clients, experiencing it myself, can be really challenging because what tends to happen is we're always focused on running away from the bad. We're always focused on reacting to, oh no, notification came in. That's not an opportunity. That's just probably something bad happening. And so our whole experience, even when we get to higher and higher levels of income, is avoiding the bad. Right? Even when theoretically and objectively it just doesn't make sense because there's money in the bank, everything is objectively going well, we're still running from something. And I've had a client that inspired this because that's the problem he was going through. But before we move into his story, I just want to break down what's actually happening here. Because normally we just blame it on the business. That's just what it is to do business. That is what it is to run teams. But the reality is that's not true. The reality is there are many people who run a business who don't experience this, who don't operate from that way. And often because of that, they're able to take more risks. They're able to really show up in a way without fear. But what's happening there? Well, I like to view it as their internal architecture is different. This is how we map reality, right? If I'm mapping reality that business is something that is keeping my stability, right? That's one way I've heard it described before, that their internal map was they felt very unstable, especially around money, right? And they felt lack of steadiness. And so the business was a way of getting that steadiness. And so if they had a sale come in, it didn't get them to go higher. They just got back to a baseline of, okay, now I'm good. Now I don't need to be worrying for that moment. But then they would go back down and they would need another sale to come in, right? And even if they did really well, that barrier would go up, and now it wouldn't just be one sale, it'd be a couple of sales, right? It'd be sales at the new level, right? A new type of client, right? But just the goalpost would keep moving. And what happens is our internal architecture, how we create our reality, creates the trigger to begin with. The trigger being the business or the sale or whatever it may be. And then the symptom being the worry, the stress, right? One person, it's like they're always hypervigilant of Slack. There's a notification going to come through that's going to mean that a client doesn't want to work with them. That's going to mean that something is wrong. And when they notice this, they just rebuild that loop again, again, and again with the stress and the anxiety. But if we take it down to the internal architecture, if we explore the meaning making that created it, we're not talking about business here, we're talking about a deep underlying steadiness or a love, right? Being truly good enough, whatever the meaning making is for you. And once we work with that internal architecture and we actually do the work there instead of at the trigger of a symptom, that's where we make real permanent change. Because instead of just dealing with the symptom, dealing with the worry, getting back to baseline, we actually recreate the map that brought this problem into our lives to begin with. So an example of this, a client comes to me and he had that problem, hypervigilant on Slack, notification comes through and oh no, what's the problem, what's going to happen, right? And there's other small ways that this would come up, whether it would be kind of a dread before his team meetings where he's worried about what they might say, is if they got bad news for him. And yet, when we explored it, what did we uncover? There was a worry of being abandoned, right? It was like the underlying sense of people were just going to turn on him, okay? And that was the meaning making that was making the Slack message so emotionally relevant. It wasn't really about the business. It wasn't really about the sale. It was about the underlying meaning that made it so emotional to him. It made it such a stress, such a worry, because it meant so much about him. That people were just going to abandon me, people were just going to turn on me and leave me, because that is something that he experienced when he was younger. And so living in this internal architecture, living in this story, was recreating this stress again and again and again. And whatever he did externally would simply just get him to escape the story for a little bit until he came right back into it. Right? Even meditation, he would escape the story a little bit, come right back into it. Yet, when we knew what the story was and where it came from, we can just allow that story to break, right? Allow that meaning making to break to the point where it doesn't exist anymore. By questioning it, giving it back, there's a number of different ways we can do that. We just allow the construct, the story to break to the point where we realize that's not true. That's just a blanket we've taken on and we're viewing the world in that way. So now, when we break it, we get to see the truth underneath, whatever that may be. For him, there was just a sense of steadiness and a real sense of, oh, people do like me. Oh, there is a sturdiness within my relationships, within my business, within my teams. I feel safe here. I feel good. That was the truth that emerged. I don't need to do anything, worry about it, make another sale to get to this steadiness. This is just natural. This safety is here already. Right? It's just ingrained. That's the truth. That's all we saw. It's just we broke the falsehood and we saw the truth underneath. To a point where it doesn't make sense to worry about the notifications, because yeah, it may dictate, maybe there's an opportunity coming through and the revenue goes up that month, or maybe something does bad happen and it goes down a little bit. But that's got nothing to do with people turning on him. It's got nothing to do with that sense of being abandoned and feeling unsafe. It's not got anything to do with it. It's not even real. It's not even relevant. Right? That's something that happened a long, long time ago, and it's completely irrelevant now. Right? Yet he was living in that story. But when we break it, we stop living in that irrelevant story, in that irrelevant meaning, and the business can simply be, okay, the number went up this month and down the next month. Okay, what can we do to create a system that helps it continue to go upwards towards a goal that we want, whatever that may be? And so that's a very different experience of just being with the logic of building a business without it meaning so much about you, without it having some kind of story about you being abandoned or some kind of story about losing your steadiness, right? Or losing your safety. It's completely irrelevant. And so that's what we're doing here, is we're noticing when we're just creating more meaning than necessary. And have you noticed some people just don't have this to begin with? They're just really like very calm, very relaxed around the business because they just didn't take any more extra meanings around it. And so it's just something they show up, they do their job, they keep building it, they keep growing it, they work hard, and it just generally goes up, right? Their identity isn't tied to it, and they're very comfortable with it. But for some of us who maybe took on different meanings and start internalizing in different ways, it's very much a challenge because we're adding extra stuff on, right? And so the business means so much like this. If it goes down, we feel this tense stress and anxiety. If a sale doesn't go our way, we feel tense stress and anxiety. If it goes well, sometimes we still feel tension, stress, and anxiety, right? We're not operating from our sharpest clarity, but we could be. And it all comes down to our internal architecture, our internal meaning. When we change that and we break the old meanings, we don't need to add some new crazy belief. We just break the old meanings so we can see it truthfully as it is. We can just be with it as it is right now without adding extra projections onto it. That's it. And it makes it a hell of a lot easier. And it means that those glass ceilings that we took on, right, we can't get to this place, that's also another thing that is just a meaning to break. And so If this resonated with you, I would definitely invite you to subscribe, check what's going on in the rest of the channel. If you do want to take this a little bit further, there is a message in the description and the top comment about how we can connect and see what the next steps might be for you. For now, have a wonderful day, my friends. I'll see you all soon.